This amazingly generous and thoughtful congregation has come together to provide a pageant, a virtual pageant for our children and our youth and our families, which was absolutely incredible in all of its beautiful chaos, and they still made it work. And it was really cute too. They all had their costumes on. We have come together and we have embraced this virtual ministry and community. We have extended our love and our care to our kin all over the country with that radical welcome. Yes, radical. You know, I love that word, radical welcome. Just think, it's a phone or an online connection and a willingness to show up is now the entrance into beloved community. That's it. It reminds me of something my colleague, the Reverend Daniel DeBona, said at General Assembly last year, which is our annual gathering of UU faithful from around the country and the world. Reverend Danielle said loosely, she said, if you want to change the world, burn all the churches down. Our congregation is not a people. The church is not our congregation is not a building. The church is not a building, but a people. Our congregation are a people. We are a people. By loving choice and by covenant, brought together to live our principles and grow through service. We are a people by choice. We recognize within each other the spark of the divine and that we are all connected. I seem to be having this conversation over and over again, and eventually in my one-on-ones or other congregations, we come to this place of recognizing that the interdependent web of all of existence is the spiritual mandate of our time. How we care for each other. How we care for each other through our generosity and service, through our anti-racist and anti-oppression work, through our ministry to our most vulnerable, and to being good stewards of the gifts that we have been privileged to receive, to include our Mother Earth. All are part of that interconnectedness. We are reminded of this care for our most vulnerable by something that I remembered years ago. I was a child, I'll admit that, but I remember hearing it as a child. That's something then Vice President Hubert Humphrey said in 1977. The moral test of a government is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those who are in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. That moral test of our time is at an all-time high right now. Those in the dawn of life, those in the twilight of life, those in the shadows of life, how we as a society treat our children, our elderly, our sick, and our vulnerable. Which brings us to the story of the birth of the child Jesus, the child of light. And I'd like to share with you a Christmas poem by Kester Bruin. When a child in poverty in an occupied land is hailed by the wise, by starmen and revered by farmhands, born scandalously of a girl displaced, unstable in a stable, far from home, Christmas turns, is revolution, all things backwards. So while felled trees are dragged indoors, step outside to plant new seeds. Who knows? Who knows what hidden wombs will bring birth to forth if we let ourselves be taken by love? If we lived as if our words might actually become flesh. A revolution, all things backwards. How would this story be told in our time? What if this child came today? Would Mary and Joseph have found refuge in a parking garage of a motel with no vacancy, with the smells of gasoline and the rows of cars and stray cats and dogs around them? Would Mary and Joseph have found refuge in an oppressive regime and fear surrounding them? A child of light. A child of light, a revolution, all things backwards. The teacher, the prophet, the one to carry that radical message of the love of God through how we care for each other, not born in a palace or of lofty means, but humbly, simply. As one writer notes, he came to meet us right where we are. In the midst of our dark, cold, and suffering world, he came to bring a message of liberation from despair, fear, and condemnation. Liberation theology teaches us that God is on the side of the poor and the oppressed. The spirit of life and love is on the side of the poor and the oppressed. This revolutionary message that we are all kin, the outcast, the forgotten, the heretics, the radicals, all of us. Beginning with Catholic priests and the theologians in South America and inspiring Black liberation theologians during the Civil Rights era, and so many more theological movements of revolution and liberation. The struggle that continues to this day. But it proclaims at its core that love reborn into the world, love came small and humble and vulnerable, without power or prestige, to meet us where we are, as we are. Hashtag perfectly imperfect is the banner proclaimed for this year. And not to side when that love came born anew, not to side with institutions or power-hungry fear-mongers or those that sow the seeds of discontent, those who make others into an other. It's a message of an all-embracing love to liberate us from the divisions that fracture our hearts, communities, and our world. That message of a liberation theology, Jesus, that we remember this night as one of hope in the midst of struggle, compassion, and aligning ourselves with the most impacted by the greedy, by the selfish of too many. But it was those two lines. Who knows? Who knows what hidden wombs will bring to birth if we let ourselves be taken by love? If we lived as if our words might actually become flesh. I love those lines. Who knows? Eternal mystery, who knows? What if we allow ourselves to be taken by love, capital L love? What if we lived as if our words might actually become flesh in our radical welcome? Yes, we celebrate our children this night through our pageant, through retelling of the Jesus rebirth story, birth story, as hope is reborn into the world for our children and the star of light, for they are the stewards of tomorrow. But not all of us have children. So then allowing ourselves to be taken by love I think it means loving the generations to come so much that we embrace that spiritual mandate of our time that I mentioned before, that let our words become flesh and our interdependence becomes that beacon for our time. Our interdependence requires of us to love, to serve, to grow, to together, together even while we're separate, to nurture and to make room. We've been talking a lot about recently what radical welcome really means. A liberation theology take of radical welcome means not you are welcome here, as my colleague C.B. Bill puts it. It does not just mean you are welcome here. It means that you, all of my beloveds that I see in your little squares, you, this place was built for you. Because we are a people. We are a people connected and interconnected. And the spark of the divine is reborn again with each and every child. That spark of the divine is within us. Let us make room. One of the traditions of this congregation and many congregations around the world is to end our Christmas Eve service with a quiet singing of Silent Night. Now I'm going to turn off my light, and I invite you to turn off your lights as well and find a candle. Beloveds, can you find a candle? Find a candle, even a cell phone screen, something to shine a light in the darkness. And as Silent Night plays the first time, you'll just hear it. And I invite you to scroll through the windows and look at the lights shining in the darkness. Look at the beauty that we have created together in this space. Amen. Blessed be. And with so much gratitude and love for each and every one of you. May peace be with you.